You need to do as you're told. You and your family need to integrate. You need to get rid of all these cultural traits because they're not tolerated in this country. And if you don't, we're going to deport you. Do you still want to come in and live a much better life?
Labour refused to support a bill to ban first cousin marriage brought by Rick Holden, who's a Conservative MP. I don't know if you're aware of this. So Labour have said, no, we're not going to support this. So, of course, the bill can't go through, basically. But during the discussion about this, a Muslim MP, Iqbal Mohammed, and again, this is somebody who I think is not born in this country. I'm thinking he's not born. Maybe
he's one of the independent MPs who was voted just because he supported Gaza.
Yeah, so he's a Gaza.
So he's a fundamentalist, basically.
So he stood up. So this is in our parliament, right? We're talking about first cousin marriage, which has never really happened in this country. We've never had to have a law about it, have we?
It used to happen a lot in this country. I'll talk about it in a minute. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've never had a law for it because the general accepted behaviour, and I was talking to my son about it, he was 22, told my son, he was saying, it's just wrong, that, isn't it, Dad? Yeah. He said, we don't need a law to tell us that this isn't right, you shouldn't marry your first cousin. Everybody knows it's just, and again, the cultural thing we're talking about. But Iqbal Mohammed stood up to say, this is extremely common, these are his words, extremely common in regions like Middle East and South Asia. Yeah. That's what he said.
Of course it is.
So we have the insane position where a Muslim MP is standing up in our seat of our democracy saying we should allow first cousin marriages because it's extremely common in the Middle East and South Asia. Yeah. What the frick's that got to do with us?
Nothing. But he's representing the people who voted him in, who are mostly foreigners, So I wrote an article recently on first cousin marriage. So there's an argument. We used to practice first cousin marriage across the West. 300-400 years ago, 500 years ago. Well, for a long time, because we lived in small, tight-knit communities. You tended to marry in the little village you was in. So at some point, you were marrying people you were related to. And I've read an article talking about how it was us moving away from that developed us into the people we are now, as in more open, more intelligent. Because if you're a tribal clan society, which Pakistan is, the Middle East is, and we used to be 500 years ago, if you're a clan society, you're only ever marrying into the clan. So therefore, no new ideas come into the clan, no new ways of doing things, no new thinking comes into it because you're marrying people who are just like you. But when you open that up and you start inviting people from other clans to come in and you marry them, they've got new ideas. So you start expanding the way you're looking at things, and that makes you more adventurous. It makes you more willing to take on new ideas and try new things instead of being really, really insular. And that's what's wrong with the third world. The third world has many resources. I'm not saying that the third world are full of stupid people. It's the culture. And first cousin marriage is the culture that keeps those countries poor and backwards.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, the more I read about it, the more it went.
And it's a theory rather than an actual proven.
It's both. It's both. So social scientists have been talking about this. It then also made me understand why certain communities in our country don't integrate. We think it's about, they've come over here, they're lazy, they all move next to each other, they don't speak English, they don't integrate. Well, the reason why they don't integrate, but other people that integrate, all comes down to cousin marriage again. Because they move somewhere.
They don't need to integrate.
And they're insular again. They were insular in Pakistan. They didn't marry the tribes next to them. They were insular there. So they come here, they're insular here. If we have to overcome cousin marriage, because that will be a big help to integration and assimilation of lots of the immigrant communities in our country.
But when that guy said this is extremely common, why didn't somebody just stand up and say, well, it's not extremely common in this country?
Yep.
And it shouldn't be extremely common. And that's the answer to that is, what the hell's that got to do with it? The fact it's extreme. We don't want to be South Asia, do we? We don't want to be these other... We want to be Britain, don't we?
It's an example of us importing more problems. So, in this country, up to a year or two ago, you could get married at 16. It's 18 now. Why is it 18? Because the Pakistani community were kidnapping their daughters to Pakistan and marrying them when they were 16, 17 and bringing them back. So now we've had to increase the age of marriage in this country to deal with an immigrant community. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's 18 now.
When was it made to 18?
A year or two ago.
All right.
We never used to have an issue with female genital mutilation, but we have now. Then it's something like 1-2% of the female population in this country have female genital mutilation.
Jesus.
1 or 2% of the population of this country. And then we have a look at other issues such as, acid attacks. All these things, we keep importing these people who, let's be honest, are not as good as us as a culture into this country, and they bring their problems with them, and then we've got to solve their problems. Let's look at knife crime within the black community.
Yeah. Killing
each other for fun.
Yeah.
And we've got to solve those problems here because we keep importing them.
Yeah.
If we have to import people, I don't think we need to, but if we have to import people, it should be under the strict guidance of, you need to do as you're told. You and your family need to integrate. You need to get rid of all these cultural traits because they're not tolerated in this country. And if you don't, we're going to deport you. Do you still want to come in and live a much better life than the shithole you live in now?
Yeah.
But no one's got the balls to have those conversations with them. So we say, come in, practice what you practice at home, and let's, fingers crossed, it works out.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, when you discuss this with people, I don't know if people say this now as much, but when you say, the knife crime from the black community is much higher, then they say, white kids use knives as well, don't they? And then they say, the female, abuse of women by the Muslim community is a higher percentage than the native British community. But British guys abuse their women as well. But the answer to that question is very simple. We've got enough of our own shit people here. We don't want any more, do we?
That's a great point. We've got criminals in this country. We don't need to import more criminals.
Correct.
But the other point is, we have got English paedophiles, British paedophiles in this country.
Yeah, yeah.
But not at the level and proportion that are in the Pakistani community.
Yeah.
We have knife crime issues. We had knife crime issues there in the 50s and 60s. With the teddy boys and the mods and the rockers and stuff like that.
And the Jamaicans then
Flick knives and stuff like that. Yeah. But not compared to the black community.
Yeah.
We know as a stat, people who weren't born in this country, who live in this country, commit crime at twice the rate of anybody of the British community. That's what the Home Office tells us. Now, within those figures, certain communities commit a lot more, such as the Black Caribbean. Black African are involved in drug dealing, violence and knife crime and gun crime. If you want to look at rape and sexual assault, Pakistani community. If you want to look at fraud, let's look at the Nigerian community. Certain communities commit different crimes at different rates. Of course they do.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they?
Yeah. And why do we want to import that here when we've got enough of our own? And that's the point. Or the answer to this question, time and time again, is yes, we have got British paedophiles. Yes, we have got British knife crime wielders or whatever. We've got murderers. We've got wife beaters. We've got enough of our own.
Yes.
We don't need to import a whole bunch more, especially if the percentages are higher in their communities as well.